Hollow Knight is a game praised by many people for its fluid combat, great level design, and great boss fights, but in my opinion, Hollow Knight's greatest strength is in its graphics. Graphics have evolved a lot in video games, starting from the 8-bit graphics in Mario Bros. To games like The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. As graphics are evolving, it puts more pressure on game developers to try to keep up the changes and advances in the industry. I am currently working on a puzzle platformer called 5 Dice, and the graphics on the game I would say are pretty crappy for a game that I hope to put on Steam someday. I've never been the best at graphical design, but I used Hollow Knight and a few other games as inspiration to create new graphics that can now compete against other games on the Steam market. If you want to see the finished graphics, then stick to the end of the video. I promise you that I won't disappoint. A lot of detail in 2D graphics doesn't just come from the basic tiles, but from the background and foreground. Hollow Knight has stunning backgrounds and very nice objects in its foreground. In Hollow Knight, they use many objects such as bushes for their foreground to entire audiences for their background. Not only does this look pleasing to the eye, but it also adds a sense of immersion in the game, giving the player the feeling of being in a vibrant, big, connected world, and not just something on a 2D plane. As you can see, my environment doesn't have any background objects or foreground objects. My environment is stuck to just a single 2D plane with a crappy background. I started by creating a bunch of different background and foreground objects for the various parts of my game. I used a pixel art software called Sprite to create trees, rocks, signs, traffic lights, etc. After I created these graphics, I did the obvious and placed them throughout my levels. I hoped that they would make the game look more appealing. The game already looks better, but to me it still felt like something was missing. Lighting is a key part of good graphics, and something that my game is heavily lacking. Hollow Knight does an incredible job at lighting, but this is not the game I'll be referencing for this part of production. Octopath Traveler is a 2.5D pixel art game that has a very strong use of lighting. It seems odd to have heavy lighting on a pixel art graphics, but Octopath does it amazingly. Octopath uses light rays to beam lights onto the environment, and it has great shadows to give more an emphasis on how strong the graphics really rely on light. My game is pixel art. I found Octopath to be the best reference in order to pull off good lighting in my game. I struggled to come up with a way to pull this off, but I came to a good solution. I decided to make all of my sprites light-based. What I mean by light-based is that the sprite only shows its colors if the sprite detects a light source. Also, depending on how strong the light source is, depends on how strong the colors of the sprite show. Luckily for me, Unity has a light source feature coded into it, so as easy as turning my sprites into light detectors and creating various light sources that create a strong and weak light throughout my stages. There was 2 more things I wanted to add to the lighting to give it some nice final touches. I decided to allow some objects in the game to radiate their own light sources, such as the dice and those rocks I drew earlier. These extra lights don't do much, but in my opinion they further add to the immersion that the lights already created. Remember when I mentioned how Octopath uses shadows to add emphasis to the light sources? Well, the final thing I wanted to add is shadowing. I found an add-on for Unity that reacts to light sources in order to create shadows, so I added this on certain sprites to give them their own shadows. Within the add-on of the shadows, I feel like the graphics of this game finally look somewhat decent, and can compete with some of the games on Steam. Now that I made some good graphics, I'm going to work on making new content for this game. If you enjoyed this video and want to follow the development of this game, I encourage you to hit the subscribe button so you can be notified when I release more devlogs. Speaking of devlogs, I hope to get one out soon once I add more content to this game. But until then, I hope everyone has a good rest of their day.